Now, have you ever built an e-commerce website for a client and reluctantly handed over the login details to the entire dashboard, knowing that you'd soon be getting a call with a list of problems pretty much as long as your arm? I know I have, and it is super frustrating. And that's why having control over exactly what your clients can do on a website is incredibly useful. Today, I'm going to give you all the tools and skills you need to protect your sanity by building your own custom front-end product management dashboard in WordPress. Okay, let's start by taking a look at the end result and then look over the tools we need to get this job done. So this is a basic example of all the shop managers' products they can edit and manage. You can see we can scroll down, we can load more in. This is all managed and set up, so only the logged in user or an administrator could kind of see these relevant different options. And then what we can do is we can say we want to edit a product. So for example, we'll edit this simple product, and you can see inside there's all the relevant information, and we can edit what we want inside here, including the different kinds of product types and so on. So if we have a really simple product and we want to make a much more complex product, a variable product, we can do that as well. So for example, I believe if we edit this t-shirt, this has more options associated with it. You've got attributes inside here. We've also got variations. We can open the variations up and we can change the price, the image, the SKU, sale price, manage stock, those kinds of things. So all the things you would need to do to manage products on a shop are all going to be included inside this tutorial. So our main tools of choice for this particular tutorial are ACF Front-End Forms Pro. We need that because that's where all of the magic is going to take place. ACF, you can use the free version, doesn't really matter. We're not going to be using that for this specific section. Advanced Post Queries, which again is the same developer behind ACF Front-End Forms Pro, and this allows us to very easily create setups for the condition for who can exactly edit any particular given product. Just makes the whole process of filtering things a little easier. Totally free product. Elementor or Ele custom skins, so we can create our custom loop. Again, we're using the free version of this. Elementor and Elementor Pro, because we need Elementor Pro for the templating setup in this example. In the future examples, we'll take a look at doing something very similar, hopefully where we don't need to rely upon Elementor Pro. And obviously we're going to need to have Woocommerce installed because we're working with Woocommerce products. So that's the key plugins that we're going to be using. You can ignore everything else here. They're all disabled and not being used in this particular example. So now we need to start by adding in the 3 blank pages ready for our custom dashboard. We'll be creating 3 in total and 1 template. Let's go ahead and add those pages in. So the first one we're going to add in is the add product page. Our next one is going to be edit product, and our third and final is going to be list products. So let's drop that inside there and we'll create that third and final page. So now we've created the pages, we can go ahead and start building things out. So the first thing I want to do is, once those pages are created, is create the new loop we're going to use to list the different products. To do that, we're going to come over into Elementor templates and we're going to come into the theme builder. And inside there, we're going to create a new loop. So we're going to add new. We're going to select this and set it to be loop. So this is part of the Elementor or Ele custom skin. You may be using different tools to do this and you can use whatever you kind of want. They'll all work in exactly the same way. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to call this Woocommerce product loop, and we'll create our new loop template. So once we've done that, we can close this down and start to build out our page. So the first thing we're going to do is just add in a single row column. We're going to use this then as the basis for our loop item. So we're going to select the entire column and we're going to just set this to be 450 pixels wide, just to give us a good example of what this is going to look like on the page itself. So all we're going to do is we're going to create just enough information that the end user can see what product it is they're editing. So we don't need to go to town, but if you want to add more, by all means do. Now the first thing I would suggest we do is to make sure that we get some preview images on here, is to come down to the settings option in the bottom left hand corner, open up the preview settings, and inside there change this over to be product, which is going to show us the products, and then we can pick a product. So I'm going to type in T for t-shirt and we'll just say we'll grab that info from there, apply and preview, and that will now mean that we'll reload the page, and when we start to create things we'll see an actual product inside here instead of some random data. So now we can go ahead and start pulling in the pieces of information that we want. So we can say we want to pull in the featured image, we can drop that inside there, and you can see that now pulls in the featured image. If we want to style this, adjust the sizing and so on, we can do all of that inside here as well, including things like links and things. I would recommend staying away from the links because that can sometimes cause issues. Okay, so with that being in place, the next thing we want is the post title, or if we want to, we can search for Woo. And inside there, you can see we also have more options, things like product title. So let's grab that, drop that inside there. You can see that now pulls in t-shirt. And we can now just repeat the same process to add any more fields that we want. So let's just do a search again for WooCommerce. And we'll just say we want things along the lines of product meta. We'll put that underneath there. And you see that'll put in any SKU code, the categories that it's in, and so on. So useful information for this particular section. And let's just do one more. And we'll just look for the product price and we'll drag and drop that underneath the title itself. So now if you want to go ahead and style these, you can do all of that. Next up on our list is the ability to add in the button to edit this particular product. So let's just go back to our widgets and we're going to do a search and we're going to find edit button for front-end site management. We're going to drag that and place that right at the bottom, and you can see that now pulls in edit post. We can change that to edit product, and that'll just change the button details. You can set your styling, all those kinds of things. The next thing we need to do is change this where it says URL query key. Now this says post ID, and what we want to change this to is product ID. So we're just going to change that to product_ID, and that's really all we need to do at this point, other than set the page we want to actually edit, what we want to use to edit this actual product. So this is going to be the editing page. Now we don't have anything on there, but we have created the page. So what we need to do is grab the link for that. So let's hop back over to our pages. We're going to drop this into the edit product. So we can just open that up. And once we open that up, we can come over to the right-hand side and there's our permalink. And what we can do is we can just copy that. So we can just right-click, choose copy link address. Then we can head back over and we can just take out everything that's inside there. And we're just going to paste in what we want, which is that new link. So we just paste that inside there, and that's the link added in alongside the URL query that'll pass over the unique identifier for each individual product. Now the next thing we want to do is come down to the permissions option, and this is where we can specify who or what user role are actually allowed to see and access this particular feature. Now I've covered this whole kind of setting things up for a user dashboard in the past, so I'm not going to go into too much detail with this, but it's just worth bearing in mind that you want to make sure there's a certain level of security added into this. So we're going to say who can see this. We've got choices between logged in users, logged out users, and all users. Well, the first level of protection we want is to make sure it's only logged in users can access this. The next step, we can choose what role they have to be as well as being logged in. And you can see administrator is added by default. But if you want to, you can add extra options inside here, including the shop manager role. Now you could use any kind of role management tool for WordPress, use a role manager for example, and create a custom user role and specify they are only allowed to have access to various different features. For this though, we'll just keep it really straightforward and use the shop manager option or an administrator. Then you can select by user. So if you want to have only specific users accessing this, you can add them inside here. We're going to disable that and get rid of it. We don't want that. And if you want to use dynamic selection, you can see we can also set this up to be post author. For this example, we don't need it because this is just a list-in section. So that's what we've set up. Only logged in users that are either administrator or shop manager will be able to see this particular section. Once you've done that, we're going to hit publish. We don't need to add any conditions to this whatsoever. Hit save and close, and that's the basic thing set up. Now I'm going to quickly just apply some styling to this, which looks just a little bit nicer than it does right now, but that's more just a visual thing, not a functional thing for this example. Okay, so there's our finished loop item. We've done with that. Next thing to do is actually insert that into the listing page so we can see a list of all of the different items we can edit. Now next on the to-do list is to set up and build the product listing page where our shop manager can easily choose what products they want to edit. So let's open up the list product page, and once we're inside there, we're going to edit this with Elementor. And then we can just pull in this loop listing that we just set up. So what we're going to do first of all is get rid of that title. Just remove that from there. And we're going to come back in and just add in single row column. Hop back over do a search on here for posts and drag and drop that into there. So let's make a little bit of space for this now, just at 50 above and below like we normally would. Okay, so there we go. So now we're going to select the posts and we're going to change this skin from classic. I'm going to come down and choose the option for custom. Once we do that, this will open up now the ability to choose what loop that we want. So you can see if we skirt around the list, we can see WooCommerce product loop, which is what we just created. And once we do that, that pulls in the relevant info. But you notice things are missing. We don't have any of the pricing structure or anything like that. And that's because this is currently using just the ordinary posts. So what we need to do is come into the query option, and inside there, we're going to change this source from posts and set that to be products. Once you do that, that will now list all of the different products inside here. Now, that's pretty cool, and if you're an administrator, you might want to edit everything. However, if you're just a shop admin and you might only want to have access to the products that you've added, maybe there's multiple different shop admins, how can we go about that? Well, that's where the Advanced Query Options plugin, that free plugin we installed earlier on, where that comes into play. We have a new section now under the query section called Advanced Query Options, and we can click and we have currently 5 different options. We're just going to simply choose the dynamic user, and then that opens up the next set of options, which allows us to choose how we want to reference a particular user. So we're going to open this up and you can see the post author is current user. Once we select that, that now limits this to only showing any of the products that we have added with the account that we're currently logged in with. So it's pretty cool and an easy way of making sure that you only have access to the products you want to have access to. Like I say, you could set up a second template for an admin user that would have full access where this dynamic user query is not being used at all. Then the next thing we want to do is make sure that we can have more than 6 products on the page at any given time. And for that, we're going to add some pagination in. So let's open those options up, choose the pagination options, and you can see we have a couple of new options based upon the fact that we're using Elementor Custom Skin, Load More, and Infinite Load. You can use those if you want to, or you can just use the normal fallback Elementor native features. Up to you how you want to work. We're going to use the Custom Skin Load More option. You can see that opens up some more options like change URL on Ajax load and so on. I'm not going to go into detail with those. Play about with them, see if they work the way you want. They're still experimental features, so maybe they won't work the way you expect, but the options are there should you want them. Okay, so that's the listing all set up. We can update this page, and now we've created the first of the key pages using our custom loop items. So before we move on, let's take a quick look at how this works on the front end and what's actually going on. So we'll preview our changes, so open up a preview window, and you can see everything is all set up and looking pretty cool. Now what happens when we click on one of these edit options? Well, let's click and you can see that will take us now to a new page. And if we take a look at the top, you can see edit product, which is the link to our edit page, which we have created but haven't fleshed out yet. And then we've got that product ID and the unique ID number at the end of it tagged on. So this is now creating that URL query filter that will pass over and allow us to edit the correct product. Now you might be thinking, well, that isn't very secure. Surely someone else can easily go in and just tie in a different number and start editing random products. And that is a very important question, but let me address it in 2 ways. First of all, the most important thing is you would make sure you put some form of security to make sure people are logged in and only have access to various different features. This is part of what we've done already by setting up how people can only access the loop items that they are logged in as and they have access to, or they're an admin. And we can use that same kind of set of functions when we go to the edit option. We can make sure that's only available to people with the relevant credentials. And because you're doing this kind of thing, if someone types in a different number on there and it's something that's been added but it isn't associated with their user account or they're not an admin, then they won't have access to it. So it's already having some security inbuilt into what we're creating. But as all these things, make sure you add additional security, and I've covered these kinds of things in dedicated videos to show you how to do all of that. Now you probably noticed that when we clicked on that link to edit the particular product, it opened up a new tab. Now that isn't always what you want, so to change that is very easy. We just head back into our product loop, which is our loop template we just created. We're going to edit this and we're going to go in there and we're just going to change that link for this button. So we're going to select the button, hop over to the options, the little link options, and we'll just specify open in a new window is disabled, update that, save and close. That's all sorted. We no longer have that to worry about. Let's come back over. We'll refresh our preview page. We'll click a different product and you'll see that opens it up in the same tab. So that's that side of things all sorted. Now we have our listing page built, we need to have the ability to actually edit the selected product. Now ACF Front-End Forms Pro makes that really easy, and we're going to go through all of those key steps right now. Next up on our list is the edit product page. So I've already opened that up. We're going to edit this with Elementor, and once you've done that, we're then ready to go ahead and build things. So like we've done before, let's just get rid of the extra junk we don't need on here, add in a single row column, and give ourselves just a little bit of space above and below. Okay, so once we've done that, next thing we need to do is go ahead and add in the form to edit our actual product. So we're going to come down, choose the front end products, and choose product edit form, drop that into our design, and you can see that pulls in some basic information for us. Now, let's just take a quick look at the left hand side before we go any further. First and most important thing we need to do is set up the product. So we're going to come into here, and you can see it says product to edit, current product. Well, we don't have a current product. We need to have this to filter based upon what the user clicks on. So let's change that to URL query. And you can see that puts in that product underscore ID. And this is why I said it was important that we change that when we created the loop item to make sure it had product underscore ID. Now we have the relevant information being passed over via the URL to filter the database. Next thing we need to do is come into the permissions option. And this is where we're going to set up that extra level of security. So you can see no permission message. We can drop in a message inside there, and that'll say you don't have proper permissions. You can set that to whatever you want. You can see then we're going to have only available for logged in users. So there's the first level, administrator, and we're going to set the second option to be shop manager. And then we're going to come down and we're going to just remove the user option. And you can see we can select by capabilities if we want to. So we can click on there and you have even more options. And this is kind of going in really granular. So if you create new user roles using a tool like User Role Manager, and you enable various different features, you can tie those into this as well to specify what they can access. For this example, we don't need to worry about that, but you have extra levels of security control if you want to. You can also do other things inside here, but we're not going to worry about most of these for now. Let's go ahead and start taking a look at how we build this form itself out. Let's come back to our form fields, expand that. Now you can see to start off with, we've got 4 fields inserted inside here. We've got the product type, title, price, and main image. And if we expand those out, this gives us 2 different sets of options, your content and your style. Now your content, as you can see, is all pretty self-explanatory. You can show or hide the label if it's relevant. You can also change the label, you can add instructions, make them required, hidden, or disabled. You can also specify based upon the type of content how you want to display it. So this example is the product type, so we can change that between simple product, group product, external affiliate, and so on. As you can see, we're just going to leave this set to simple product as the default option. It will still pick up whatever the particular product you're editing is anyway, so don't worry too much about that. It's more kind of useful when you're creating a new product. And then if you want to, you can change this between radio buttons and select. Personally, I prefer the select. It's a little bit more in keeping with what the dashboard inside WordPress and WooCommerce actually have. Hop over to the style. You can see this is where we can do things like set the width of this based upon any device that we have accessible. We can set the float on this. If we set this up to be 50% or 30%, for example, we can set left, right, or none on there to control which position it goes into. And we can apply margins and so on inside here as well as padding. So pretty cool, pretty straightforward. Now at the point of releasing this video, we are still on version 2.11.8, I think. It's something like that. It's not version 3. But speaking to Shabdi today, version 3 might even be out by the time this video is released, but if not, it should be out the next few days. And one of the things that brings with it is the ability to quickly add in as many fields as you want. At the moment, it's a little bit time consuming because you have to add them in one at a time. And because this is working with products with WooCommerce, there's an awful lot of different options. So for example, if I open up the add item, you can see we can pull in ACF fields, which are, if we want to add custom fields to our products, we can add those in, including fields and field groups. We also have things like message, column, and step, which allows us to control the layout of this. So if you wanted a multi-step form for making it just a little bit simpler, you could enable that feature. I don't want to cover that in this particular tutorial, but it's there should you want it. And then you have all of the different relevant pieces of information to do with the different product options, right the way through to variations, attributes, and so on. So if you saw my previous video where we took a look at using this plugin, we didn't have access to anything other than simple products. We can now access all types of products. So that's really cool to see. So now it's a process of going through and adding in all the fields that are relevant. I'm not going to bore you by making me do this, but I'll go through and put some of the basic ones in, and I'll show you some of the ones that I think warrant me showing you how to use them a little bit more in detail. Okay, so I've gone ahead, added in a lot of the key fields you want. Like I say, there's still plenty more you can add in. But what I want to show you now is how you handle some of the key fields that are a little bit different. So let's go and add an item in. We're going to change this from ACF fields. We're going to scroll through until we find the option to come in and choose attributes. I'm going to select the attributes option. That will drop that inside there. Now you can see this is already pre-filling some information out. Now I also want to drop in the second one, which in this example is going to be the variations, because these are predominantly always tied together. So we'll insert our variations as well. Okay, so you can see now this gives us the ability to choose the different terms for, in this example, with what we've got set up, colors and sizes. And then you've got the various different options underneath for the relevant key details. And you can see this also expands out and shows you the variation, the price, the image, and so on. However, there's extra things we can add inside here if they're not already relevant. So for example, if we come into attributes and we scroll down, you see we have an option that says manage fields. Let's open that up. And inside there, you can see name, location, custom terms, and global terms. So these are the default options that are inserted in there. And you can click and you can change values inside here as well. Now, these are things that have to be in there. So other than just changing the basic terminology, that's pretty much all set. However, when it comes to working with the variations, that's a little different. Scroll down again, you see we have the manage fields option. Let's click on that. And you can see this now gives us the price and the image. And again, we can open those up and we can edit them if we want to. However, we're not going to change anything inside there, but we can add additional items in. So if you're managing stock, for example, then it makes sense to add that in. The same if you're managing SKU codes, you can add that in. So all you need to do is simply come in here and do the same kind of thing as we saw when you're creating the form itself. So we can say we want to add in the SKU code. And you can see that now puts that inside there. We can come in and add another one in, and we're going to say we're going to add in the sale price. And again, you can see that drops that in. And let's just say we also want to come in and just choose to manage stock. So we'll say manage stock, and we'll add one more item in here, which is going to be the stock quantity. And you can see all those are now added in to each of those variations. So when we hit update now, we've got a basic form with lots and lots of really useful information being pulled in dynamically. There's still, like I say, loads more you could add in, and depending upon the kind of store, the kind of products and things you're going to sell, that will control what you put on here. One other thing I want to show you, let's take a look at the tags. So this is something that is quite useful as well. So we're going to open up the product tags, and inside there you can see we have content, and we can choose the option to add terms. And again, we can choose checkboxes, multi-select, radio. So lots of different options inside here. Let's say we'll choose multi-select, for example, and you can see that changes. You can come down, you can say select, and that will change it again. Or we can come in and say we wanted radio buttons. So all those are available. And if you want to allow people to add their own terms in, you can just choose this option, and now new tags can be added in. So that's the basics of how this is all set up. Now, you can also change other things inside here. Like at the moment, if we scroll down to the bottom, we see it says update. That might not be what you want. You could change that, and you can easily just change that with changing the text on the update button itself. And the same goes with the top of the form. You can see we have edit product. We could take that out if we don't want it. If we want to style this or control through Elementor itself, we can do that. And if you want to enable multi-step, that can be done inside here as well. Now, before we wrap this section up, let me just go through a couple of other things. If, for example, you want to have the administrator of the website notified when a new product is added or edited, you can do that by using the actions option. And you can see submit actions. We can choose to send an email. If we do that, we get an email option, and we can go ahead and fill that out. And if you've ever used ACF Front-End Forms Pro or ACF Front-End Forms, the free version, or any of the tools like this, they all have these same options. You can also choose what happens after submit. Do you want to stay on the current page? Do you want to go to a custom URL, etc., etc., etc.? So you can set that up how you want to. You can even set it up so there's no page reload, send URL parameters, lots of really useful things, including your error messages and so on. You can also come into your product, And you can see we can change the status on here. So when someone edits a product, you might want that to go back into pending review to make sure that it gets authorized by an admin. Well, you can set that to be pending review if you want to, or you can just leave it as it is empty. And the same kind of thing goes for display options and limit submissions and so on. So there's lots of really useful options, and I would recommend just digging in and taking a little look at some of the things you have on offer. But let's just update this page now, and let's take a look at how this links up with what we've done with the URL parameter and the listing of all the products. Okay, so we're back on our listing page with our custom loop and so on, and let's take a look. Let's just pull one of these products in, for example, this beanie. Let's edit that product, and you see that now loads it in, and we can see all the details are being pre-populated. Everything is listed inside here, including things like colors. We come back out of this and go into a product like this, for example. We'll edit that. If we scroll down, we can see there's my attributes, there's my variations. If I click to expand this out, I can then set any values for SKU codes, sale prices, managing stock, and so on inside there. So when you're used to working with this with part of WooCommerce itself, this is all going to be very, very familiar to you because it all works in pretty much exactly the same way. Listing and editing products is great, but now we need to look at adding completely new products to our site. Thankfully, this is also just as easy as editing a product. In fact, it's almost the exact same setup process. So let's take a look at how we do that right now. Okay, so to add our product, we're onto the add product page we created earlier, and we're going to edit this with Elementor like we've done previously. And once we've done that, let's just do what we've done in the past. Let's get rid of this heading, drop in our single row column, and just give ourselves a little bit of space above and below. Okay, so with that done, let's hop over to our widgets, scroll through until we get to the ACF front-end form options, and you can see we have an option for add product form. Drop that into our design, and you can see this is basically exactly the same as we just saw with the editing side of things. The whole process of setting it up is pretty much the same. So we can go through the process now of adding all the relevant fields that we want in there, coming through and setting our permissions up to make sure this is exactly as we want. So again, we'll put a message inside there, only logged in users, administrators, and shop managers, and we'll remove the select user, and we've set up our basic options. So instead of me boring you with the whole process of just putting these fields in, I'm literally just going to go through and put the same fields as we've seen already in the editing form section into our form, and then we're going to go from there. Okay, so there's most of the fields that we need added in. If I want to add more in, as we've seen before, I can add more in at any point. Okay, so once we've done that, there's a couple of things we want to do now. We want to change this submit button, which doesn't make a lot of sense. We're going to change that over to add product. There we go. You can say submit this button description if you want to put a description inside there, and you can style it to all those kinds of things as well. So then we're going to say, again, the action. So what do you want to happen? You can see we can add additional actions. So again, we can add in emails if we want to notify an admin or something. There's a new content that's been added. We can set it to stay on the current page, or any of those other options we saw. So we'll leave it on stay on current page. Any of those options, what do you want to do? Do you want to, after reload, do you want to clear the form, or do you want to choose the option to edit the form? If you choose edit, it'll give you an edit form variation. So it's up to you how you want to work with these kinds of things. If we come down to product, we can now check the product status and any product terms we want to associate with it. So for example, we might want to set this to be pending review, which is what we will do. And if you want to set any product terms, you can use between current and select product terms. So if you want to select, you can choose different terms. We're going to leave that as it is for this example. Now that's pretty much most of what you want to do. You may want to also limit the number of submissions. So you may have different user roles having access to various different features like this, at which point you can then set the role that you want. So in this example, we've got subscribers. We can change that. We'll set that to be shop manager, and we'll remove subscribers. Oops, let's put the shop manager back in. There we go. And then you can see we can change this to shop managers, for example. and then we can say allow submissions. We can specify, well, they could only actually have 5 submissions, for example. However you want to set it up, it's entirely up to you. And you can also limit it by the user, and you can stack these on top of each other to have different rules for the different roles. So lots of really cool options. We're going to get rid of that inside there. We don't want to limit it. And that's basically the whole process done. So let's update this. And now we can go ahead and test this out to make sure that the new product is added in and also that it's set to be the relevant status. Okay, so here's our page. Looks pretty ugly at the moment, but one of the things I do want to show you, this is currently set as a simple product. So if we scroll down, you can see while we have attributes, we have nothing else inside there. However, if we change this over to be something like a variable product, you can see this gives us different options. We now get attributes and variations. Now, I'm not going to go through the process of showing you how to add all these in because it works in pretty much exactly the same way as it does inside the normal WooCommerce editor. But I'm going to go ahead, fill out some basic information on here, and then just show you how easy it is to add everything in. So there we go, the product's now been added successfully. We've got the notification at the top to tell us this, and you can see the way that I've set this up to go back to edit the actual product. You can see we could easily come in and make changes to this if we find we want to add something else in, we want to make a change to the product type, those kinds of things. So we can see from the front end, everything is working fine. Now let's take a look at the back end and see how everything is set up inside there. There we go. If we take a look at our products now, you can see there's our simple product test. It's set to be pending. Our details are inside there, including the categories and so on. If we open this up and take a look, we can see all the relevant data that we've transferred in, pricing, regular pricing, all those kinds of things, short description, the uploaded image, the categories associated with it, all of that information is inside here. And once we're ready, we can hit publish, and that will now be available on the front end of the site for anybody that wants to buy it, and also available in our listing so we can make edits to this if we wanted to. Now, for more on building front-end dashboards in WordPress and WooCommerce, check out this video next. If you want to expand upon what I've covered today and include the ability to handle orders, then that video will be coming really soon when Shabti, the developer, releases version 3 of the tools. Now, if you want to be notified once that video comes out, be sure to hit that subscribe and click the bell icon to become part of the notification crew. As always, all of the applicable links are in the description below, and I would love to get your feedback on this tutorial in the comment section. As always, my name is Paul C, this is WPTuts, and until next time, take care. No dancing this time, but if you hang around to the end, make sure you keep doing that.